the weirdest thing you've discovered about your partner only after moving in together? Story 1. He gets a weird feeling in his tummy and then goes to sit on the toilet for an hour until he has a bowel movement. I apparently wait until I get the cue to go to the bathroom before actually attempting, as I thought was normal. He quite literally made fun of me yesterday for kicking him off the toilet. You made me get up to only take 30 seconds? Dude, you've been in there for 45 minutes and clearly nothing was happening if you could just let me in like that. Story 2. In the middle of the night, I will wake up to him having both of his arms straight in the air like a zombie. If I lay too close to him when he does this, I get a surprise mammogram when he inevitably drops his arms down. Story 3. He sleeps like a vampire sleeping on his back, with his arms straight by his sides or folded on his chest. Every single night. Some nights he doesn't even change his position at all. I was seriously concerned during the first couple of nights we slept in the same bed. Story 4. He will occasionally, usually when I'm not around to be appalled, eat dry tortellini straight out of the bag when he's reading in bed. Dry tortellini. Story 5. I always thought that when movies or TV shows feature someone talking in their sleep and they just spout random silly nonsense, that it was mostly for comedic effect and wasn't really a reflection of real life. Nope. My partner talks in his sleep and it's always just absolute random silly nonsense. The most recent one was, in a tone of dismay, there's ice cream all over the stairs followed by a drawn-out bruh. He also just periodically giggles in his sleep, which, frankly, is one of the most adorable things I've ever seen from another human. Story 6. How unbelievably and almost uniquely normal she is. She has no drama, no family issues, no trauma-induced fetishes. She likes Superman and loves people for who they are. She's mild-mannered and kind, loves animals. Like she has zero crazy. We've never raised our voices to one another in 9 years together. Coming from 30 years of chaotic relationships, it's still a little unsettling to me sometimes. Like we've been married 7 years now and I still wait for the crazy to pop up. But there very well may just not be any. She's the definition of a breath of fresh air. Every day. Story 7. That it's apparently totally normal to leave every cupboard open. I love her more than life, but man is it annoying. Edit, yes, she has ADHD, we both do. Story 8. My boyfriend essentially needs blizzard conditions to sleep. Ceiling fan, side fan, completely naked. Sometimes puts an ice pack under his pillow, and he puts blizzard sound effects on his earphones to drop off. If I'm there, he also constantly hugs, squeezes, or wraps himself around me. We only lived together for a week at a time before, as I need basically the opposite conditions: warm, layered pajamas, untouched, silence. We're not compatible to share a sleeping space. So in a couple of months, we're getting a 2-bedroom place together so we both get to sleep and not want to murder each other. Story 9. We were fixing to watch a movie and he wanted popcorn. He said, too bad we don't have any lettuce. I asked if he wanted a salad. He said, no, I want popcorn and lettuce. He said he never said anything at the movie theater because he always knows they never have lettuce. The man eats bites of lettuce and popcorn together. His whole family does. Story 10. He farts nonstop. Just won't stop. I call him my little gas station. Edit. Y'all are taking this way too serious in the replies. Go play proctologist somewhere else. Story 11. She has to have a kettle of water on the stove at all times. She rarely uses the kettle. It is in case the power goes out and the well pump stops. We have city water service. Story 12. He wakes up every night to find something to eat from the fridge while half asleep, and drops food all the way from the fridge back to bed, and sometimes leaves cutlery in the fridge. Story 13. So, when my husband and I moved in together, after various roommates and housing jumps, we ended up with a collection of can openers. But only one was any good, as it happens. I do a lot of can-heavy cooking, so I'd usually end up pulling 2 or 3 openers out, trying them till I find the one that can do all the work I needed. I'd put the extras aside, intending to ask him his thoughts on how to handle it. They still can be used, so I didn't want to toss them out, but it's too much work to use them for multiple cans at once. But always, he'd forget, and he would clean the dishes and end up putting those away. We moved across the country together. We were engaged when he finally asked, "Why do you use 1 can opener per can when you cook?" That was how he interpreted the empty cans and piles of can openers. That I was some oddball that didn't want to cross-contaminate my cans when opening them, and he was fully prepared to marry into that perceived craziness. Story 14. My boyfriend sleep talks, yells, sings, and laughs. I've woken up in a panic thinking someone was breaking in because he had yelled at the top of his lungs, "UTF, are you doing here?" just to look over seconds later and see him with his eyes closed and mouth wide open. Story 15. She doesn't fully close cabinets or lids. She'll leave out a jar of anything, jelly, peanut butter, etc., and give the lid a quarter turn, then call it a day. Story 16. This was in the 90s. He only had 3 CDs in his living room. I asked where the rest of his music was. He said he didn't own any more because he doesn't really like music. How had this topic never come up before? Story 17. My partner was born and raised in a developing nation and has only lived in the US about 5 years. So the cultural differences have been pretty interesting in terms of lifestyle. You think you have a decent idea of the size of your privilege until you're presented with all the myriad ways your upbringing was totally different than theirs. As intelligent and well-educated, so it just didn't occur to me just how much of what I consider basic knowledge is dependent on experience and access to certain items. Some examples. He never had a car with cruise control in his home country and didn't know it existed. We were 12 hours into a 14-hour drive before I noticed he wasn't using it and asked why. As you can guess, he's a big fan LOL. He knows our tap water is safe, but he still can't drink it without using a filter. It's too ingrained in him. Similarly, his country doesn't have water softeners, so I had to explain about those. He also never had a dishwasher before, so trying to get him to use ours instead of washing the dishes by hand has been a challenge. I feel like they get cleaner in the dishwasher, and he feels like they get cleaner when hand-washed because it's what each of us is used to. At the end of the day, they get cleaned, so despite cooking for himself since he was a child, he doesn't know a lot of what I consider basic cooking skills. He had a hot plate and a microwave, and that was it. Apart from cooking oil, there wasn't money for things that helped with the cooking process. Any herbs or sauces were chosen for a strong flavor to hide the taste of ingredients that were bland, or even a little past their prime and be cheapness. He prefers much stronger flavors than I do as a result, but he's also been extremely receptive to everything I've taught him to make so far. Story 18. Most of these top discoveries are negatives, so I'm going to add a positive. She is capable of reversing her sleep schedule as needed. I've had the same sleep schedule for decades and she just makes up new ones when needed. Story 19. That my husband has been mispronouncing his own last name for his entire life. His mother says it differently than he does, and his paternal grandmother said it differently than he did. So I joke that I have a variable last name. Story 20. Bro, oh my god. So my current partner is amazing. I have never found anything that made me go WTF. He's very normal, which I very much appreciate. My ex had some weird in his apartment that I had no idea about until I just randomly found it one day, not even looking for it. One day, while deep cleaning his kitchen, I pulled out his silverware drawer and pulled out the thing that separates the silverware so I could clean it. And underneath it and shoved into the very back of the drawer was a pill bottle with matches and a little slits of papers that had names, addresses, and phone numbers. I recognized some of the names and didn't understand why he had this information. I think it was a hit list. You'd have to know the situation more to get that one, though. I found papers upon papers of random people's names and social security numbers. The big pillow he had sitting in his floor that was kind of used as a beanbag was filled with his ex-girlfriend's clothes. I had been sitting and sometimes even sleeping on that pillow, and it was just weird. He ended up almost killing me. He went to jail last summer for stalking his most current partner. I felt like I would have had that issue if I didn't have a very large family and a ton of brothers that had already showed up on him before. A while ago, my partner at the time was a surgeon. After moving in, I found she had terrible hygiene and used to sneeze without covering her mouth. At least once she sneezed and I felt sneeze moisture spray hit my skin. It's like I had a child sat next to me. It was also around the time swine flu had become a thing. At one point, I got really sick swine flu, and she kept saying, "When can I kiss you again? I won't get sick." For someone who works as a surgeon, her lack of awareness or care for hygiene and disease transmission was incredible. Major factor in my decision to end things. Story 21. That the entire family overestimate their hunger all the time. Always fill the plate to the brim with food, eat only the half and leave the plate near the sink without even disposing the leftover food. Disgusting to look at those plates. Entire family, not just the partner. Story 22. The snot shirt. When he gets any kind of respiratory sickness, he takes a shirt out and puts it on his nightstand and blows his nose in it during the night. He says it's cheaper and softer than tissues. Story 23. She leaves small amounts of food in their containers instead of finishing them off. Cereal, chips, milk, etc. It's infuriating. Putting up with it for 18 years. Not worth fighting over. I know that if I really want something to eat, I expect it not to have a serving's worth before I open it. And once she gets it that low, she won't finish it off. I either finish it or throw it away. Story 24. That he can't tell the difference between facts and his opinion. They are one and the same to him, and he's very opinionated. I thought he was a very clever man. I was wrong. Story 25. Hez the mostly normal one. The weirdo LOL. Hez caught me talking to inanimate objects several times but jokes on him when there is a machine uprising, and the toaster spares me because I was always kind to it. Story 26X. But it blew my mind that he was 37-ish and still didn't have a spot or home for his keys wallet when he got home from work or wherever. He just randomly placed them in two separate random spots. Never the same spot. Panic ensued every single morning. Wild. Story 27. She snored like an asthmatic wild boar with a 60-a-day habit. It was disconcerting to say the least to see this pretty raven-haired beauty cause the lampshades to vibrate. Story 28. When my wife moved in, she brought this blue enameled stainless steel dinner plate with her. She used to eat off it all the time. I asked her about it once and she was just like, I just like it. All right, 1840s cartoony prospector, mine your gold. Anyway, about a decade into our relationship, we bought a house and moved in. The plate, by this time, was battered. I'd started calling it Rusty the Tetanus Plate because the enamel coating had worn through, and I was beginning to worry it was unsanitary for actual real. While we were packing up to move, we were sorting things into boxes, and what was going in the dumpster, or to the new house. My wife slowly picked up that enameled plate, a single tear on her cheek, and lowered it gently into the garbage. I actually don't know if that's what happened. I was cackling over some club magazines I'd stashed when we were just married. From back when pornography was about the art, damn it. I didn't notice it was gone until we got to the new house, and I was sad to see it gone. I asked, and she was like, Rusty had to go. At this point, you're all like, go get her another one, idiot. And stop backseat driving. Obviously, I did that. Way before you even heard the story, so who's the idiot now? Yeah, you. But it had to be the right one. Took years, but I finally found another, almost exactly the same, in an antique shop. I gave it to her for some event I can't recall. Birthday, something. Doesn't matter. But man, she cried so much, and I want to now just thinking about it. It's still in the cabinet. Story 29. The folding of linens cracks me up. My wife had a very abusive upbringing and first marriage. Her quirks are really trauma responses to keep her safe, and gave her quite a bit of anxiety early in our relationship. We've been together almost 4 years, and she is now comfortable ripping gnar in front of me and my kids. Doesn't worry about dishes being done immediately. I enjoy doing them, which surprises the out of her and other random things. She's safe now. The weirdest thing about her is that she eats all the toppings and cheese off of pizza with a fork, and then the crust and remainder of the slice by hand. Story 30. That she's sweating all over the bed. But that ain't no problem for me. The big issue here is that she's neglecting that she's the one doing it and won't change the sheets. Story 31. We have a shoe rack. He has never used it. He prefers instead to discard his shoes in a semicircle around the front door like a booby trap for me. His incredibly clumsy fiancé. I love him even though my life is constantly at risk. Story 32. She eats Oreos by taking a tall glass and filling it about 3/4 full of the cookies, then she fills the glass with milk. She then waits about 5–10 minutes, stirs it all into a slurry, and eats it like a soup. Story 33. She threw all of her daily contacts behind her headboard, and I don't think she ever intended on cleaning them up because there were like 300 of them back there. Story 34. He makes up songs about everything he's doing, seeing, thinking about. I know where he's been in the apartment because make up a song about ketchup after he's grabbed something from the fridge or sing a song about Sarav while doing his skincare. The best part is that the thing he tends to make up silly songs about the most is me. I love him. He boils pasta according to the package instructions. I taste it during the cooking process and strain it when it's done. I'm not sure which one of us is the weird one. Story 35. They can speak Carney. Because their grandfather was a little person in showbiz and various other public-facing careers, and taught his daughters to speak it as a means to be able to talk about others collectively without them knowing, and his daughters taught it to all of their daughters. Finding out was pretty random because it was the first time meeting that side of her family, and I heard her cousins and aunts. She wasn't at the time, all speaking nonsense, and just thought it was a funny thing to take note of. Wasn't till I asked her in private, laughing, that her aunts and cousins are insane, and asked what was going on, when she revealed she could speak it too but hadn't in a while because she was never around that side of the family that much. Story 36. She enjoys hosting dinners with a fully set table every night. I feel like I'm in a restaurant enjoying the most delicious and creative 4-course meal I could never have imagined. Story 37. My late husband loved to, and thought farts were the funniest thing in the world. He and his 100 lb dog would eat pizza together when I was at an evening class and entertain me by farting in tandem when I got home. I used to open the windows to survive, and the dog seemed so proud. He'd wag his tail like mad after he farted. God, I'd give so much to have the two of them back. I wouldn't even complain about the stink. Story 38. She asks me to repeat almost everything I say, and then when I start to repeat, she answers me, confirming that she actually heard me but doesn't take the time to process it. Story 39. Often, when I'm in the shower, he has to go immediately. It's like a weird and effective laxative for him. Am not as big of a fan and I don't think he even realizes. Story 40. My girl was speaking at night. Each night when I could not fall asleep, I would just hear how she says some random words. One day, she was repeating name Josh at night. I asked her in the morning why, and she was kind of surprised that I know this name. In the end, it appeared that she was cheating on me with Josh from her work. Story 41. He bobs his head when he plays the PlayStation and is very focused. I recorded it in slow motion one day to show him. He apparently knows he does it. I never knew until we got our second apartment together. Story 42. My ex would every morning and then get directly in the shower without wiping first. And if he did have to in the middle of the day, he would stand up to wipe. Story 43. I discovered my ex had dissociative identity disorder 6 months into us living together. It was like dormant when we met, so she thought it was in the past, but it ended up coming back. An impressive and scary thing to witness. Story 44. She loves her carpet and Dyson more than kids and animals. It's like she's in a trance with this thing, can't even walk on the carpet lines without her noticing. 15 years later, it's still happening. Can't judge, though I'm the same with my lawn. Story 45. When something needs to be moved to another room, rather than moving it, she puts it somewhere obvious like the middle of the hallway. I have a hard time sleeping, so very often I'm creeping around at night to go get another drink and not wake her. I'm always tripping over some box that needed to make its way upstairs. Story 46. Has rarely naked. I have to request for him to take off his clothes. As the night gets later, I'm taking off bits and pieces of clothes till I'm down to my underwear to sleep. Has just fully content in his outside clothes. It seems so uncomfortable. Last night I curled up next to him when he was joining me in bed and felt a zipper. Had to ask him to please take off his hoodie. He thinks I'm weird because I made a no jeans under blankets rule when he started sleeping over. I've been telling him he needs to match me without a shirt unless he wants me to put one on when we're sleeping. Unfortunately, that only works if we're going to bed at the same time. Story 47. My wife can't sleep without the TV being on. She blames it on living in an apartment by herself in a sketchy neighborhood. We've been married 15 years and live in a quiet area, but she still can't sleep. I have resorted to sleeping in the guest bedroom because the TV drives me crazy. Story 48. He leaves every light on. Never turns lights off when he leaves the room. I will come home and every light in the house is on. Not sure why he does it. Story 49. My wife hates doing the dishes and complains that food always gets stuck on them. My wife also never rinses her dishes and just drops them in the sink. Apparently, in her mind, those two things are completely disconnected. Story 50. The foods, mostly leftovers, he will eat cold and straight out of the fridge. Or he could eat straight out of a can and not warmed up at all. Mac and cheese and beans, cold pasta, etc. Or maybe I'm weird because I like it piping hot. Story 51. My husband is 11, 28 taller than me. We never thought about what the world looked like through the other person's eyes. Found this out when he kept putting my coffee on the top shelf and I couldn't find it. We did a lot of him bending down or picking me up so we could see what the other person sees. 14 years in, and I think we have it mostly figured out. Everyone in my family is roughly the same height, so I never experienced this. Story 52. She burps like a nuclear bomb. When she burps, she feels like she needs to yell while burping to get it all out. Same for sneezes. Anytime I play games on voice, there's an occasional birth of a galaxy going on in the other room that always startles my friends. Story 53. My partner makes quiet, sweet, happy sounds while eating and he doesn't realize it unless I point it out. It's almost like a hum. It's super endearing. Apparently gorillas also do this. Story 54. He takes off a single sock a couple of hours before going to bed. In those hours in between, he will walk around the house with a single sock, like a psycho. Story 55. She talks in her sleep and answers if you ask her something, but sometimes gets mad about it if she finds out you are asking her questions while she's sleeping, but won't wake up. Story 56. Not my current partner, but I had a partner, and we moved together out of state before I learned that he didn't wash his butt. We were about 23, 24 at the time. This was right after I graduated college during the market collapse, and we were on the struggle bus trying to find employment, or at least I was. He spent all of his time playing video games on the couch while I was at coffee shops using their internet to apply for jobs. Our couch started stinking something fierce, and he honestly told me it was just farts. One day we were showering together, and he says, "I'm done." I look at him and say, "Wait, but you didn't wash your butt." "That's what the shampoo running down my back is for," he replies. "No, you really have to get in there," I demonstrated. Why would I touch my butthole?" He absolutely held to that, and to my knowledge never washed his butt properly. We weren't together very long after that. After the lease was up, I was out of there and he kept the couch. He is now only referred to in my ex history as, "All you mother leaving cabinets open need Jesus." Story 57. Doesn't clean the stove. He is a very clean person when it comes to literally everything else, and run the burner grates through the dishwasher sometimes, but it just never dawned on him to actually scrub the stovetop. Thank you. This thread just reminded me of how dateable I still am. Story 58. This wasn't like a problem. Weird thing, but it was weird. He put on his socks. First, when getting dressed. I looked over one morning and he looked like a dad from a sitcom with high socks on, but nothing else. I was like, "You put your socks on first and not last?" And he was like, "Yeah, I guess." It made me question if I was weird for doing the opposite. To be fair, I did find it a little adorable. He would walk around like a middle-aged dad every morning while getting ready. Story 59. Once when I was living with my ex, I saw him grab a banana, unpeel the entire thing, grasp the bare banana with his hands, then proceed to take a bite and eat it like normal. When I pointed out the peel exists as a barrier between your hand and the part you eat, and you peel it down as you eat it, he just shrugged and said, "He's always done it that way." Story 60. He will literally cross his legs in his sleep. Like imagine sitting on a chair and you know how men do the wide leg cross? Where their foot sits on the other knee. Well, he stands the leg up, so the blanket looks like a tent. The first time I woke up beside him and he was doing that, I almost cried laughing. Never seen that before, that's for sure, lol. Story 61. Stripping our bed for the first time, I was shocked to see the stark difference in how much we sweat while we sleep. My side was mostly the same shade of white, but on his, there was a clear outline of his body in yellow. I knew he ran hot while he slept, but I had no clue just how much he was sweating. I never saw the need for owning a mattress protector until that moment. Story 62. He grew up thinking he was allergic to eggs, so he never learned how to boil or cook an egg and asked for help with that. Totally fair. However, I later discovered that he had never sauteed spinach and asked for help with that. Sauteed spinach was a staple in my house growing up, and I always had made an assumption that everyone knew how to saute any vegetable. He also had zero experience with foil and asked for assistance when making a pan of sheet veggies and lining the pan with it. He had never used the gel toilet cleaner before, only the brushes that were preloaded with cleaner, and asked how to dispense the gel into the toilet. I was flabbergasted with each revelation. This man is in his early 30s and has been living on his own for a decade. It's always funny and a little shocking when you find out that everyone has their own unique backgrounds with their own experience and wheelhouse of things, and they won't always know what you assume to be general knowledge, lol. Story 63. She crumples a load of toilet paper into a ball instead of folds over and goes through a roll or two a week, and says, "I don't understand because I don't have a vagina." Story 64. That he thought dish towels were for wiping your hands, wiping up messes while cooking, while I thought dish towels were for drying hands or dishes you just washed. It's not a problem now that I know about it. We just get a fresh towel after cooking. But the first time I saw him do it, I was appalled. Who knows what all he wiped on my clean towels before I realized he was doing it. Story 65. All my exes snoring. All of them. Does it disturb me? No. For my brain it is like, oh, they sleeping well. And when I was sleeping alone in that time, it was very hard to sleep. Well, one ex-GF did a step more. She was already sleeping. I laid beside her and suddenly she sits in the bed. It was in the summer and the room was really warm. So she took off her t-shirt, got back horizontal, searched my arm, turned 90 degrees and put my hand on one of her breasts. Then it was really hard, yeah, to sleep. Next morning, what did you do, you perv? Nothing. Story 66. Pros. My husband is the least moody person in the world. He just doesn't have mood swings, ever. He's also never angry with me, and having grown up with an abusive dad, I really love and appreciate that Khan's loudest breather ever. Drinks too much coffee. And it takes him forever to cook a simple dish. Story 67. She only drinks skim milk. Not that weird. But I changed from 2 to skim for the first 9 or so years. I noticed that our skim milk always seemed to go bad much sooner than the expiration date and assumed it was a skim thing. Then, a year ago, I had 2 milk again and decided I wanted to have my own jug of milk and started buying 2 for myself, and she still got her skim. My 2 always was good up to and past the expiration date. Basically never had to throw it out. I noticed something. When I get out my milk, I use it and put it right away. When she gets out her skim milk, she leaves it out for the whole extent of her meal and sometimes longer with the cap off. Sometimes as long as 45 minutes. My conclusion is that she keeps letting her milk warm up before putting it away again, and that must be affecting the longevity of the milk, where my 2 is always kept cold. Maybe it's a skim thing too. Story 68. He wears a beanie to sleep. 2 reasons. 1, he's a super light sleeper, and even with blackout curtains it's not dark enough. 2, he used to have long hair, and the hat keeps it out of his face. We permanently always have a beanie in the bed. It's those ones with the puffballs on top too. Story 69. My wife's insomnia. It's bad and some days she can't sleep at all. Seeing her struggle with it is awful since I can't help. People don't realize how debilitating insomnia can be. Story 70. My wife is Chinese, and after we moved into our first house, I started finding she dried up fruits all over the house. Little dried up tangerines in nooks and crannies. On windowsills, in my car's glove box, under the baby's crib. I kept asking about them, but she would brush me off. I finally discovered that it is a Chinese tradition, and I guess a family superstition. Every year on Chinese New Year, her family buys a new tangerine tree. You put them all over the house for good luck and leave them there all year. On the next New Year, you replace the dried up ones with fresh ones. She didn't want to tell me at first because she was embarrassed and thought I would think it was weird. I actually find it very cute, and I am always learning new things about her culture. Story 71. Hardly dries off after a shower, and then immediately gets dressed while still dripping water on the floor. They got annoyed when I tried to dry them off LOL. Story 72. My husband mentioned he put toilet paper down on the seat, which I thought, okay, you do you. Our toilet is clean, but to each their own. Then I realized by seat he meant the rim of the bowl. He lifted the seat up, put toilet paper around the rim and sat on that. I asked how he is not falling in, and I guess the way he sits and holds himself up makes him not fall in, and also easier too. We own a squatty potty, but he thinks that's weird. Story 73. She gets an itchy throat and ears, so to scratch it, she makes inward pig grunts with her throat while pulling her earlobes down and finishing it with a hawk. Like she's spitting, but it's a vocal bluck 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 bluck. It's adorably weird. Story 74. I had a GF, an ex now, that would take her tampons out while sitting on her couch watching TV, wrap it in toilet paper, and stuff it between the cushions of her large sectional sofa. I was cleaning the apartment one day while she was at classes and discovered dozens of these frickin' turds. That same day, I also found 5 or 6 bowls of months-old circled curdled cereal milk in the entertainment center cabinets. The explanation was that sometimes she doesn't have time to walk 10 feet to the kitchen or 20 feet to the bathroom to put things where they go. Story 75. That you can use every single pot, pan, and cooking utensil in every meal. Making a fancy dinner? Every pot. Making a sandwich? Every pot. Why? I don't know, but she is an excellent cook. Story 76. How she takes off her clothes. Pants and shirts. When she takes them off, always one leg's sleeve will be inside out and the other won't. One leg's sleeve will be partially inside out of itself. So one leg will be completely inside out and the other will be completely not, except for the bottom 3 inches, which will be knotted into an inside-out ball. Or one will have one leg totally normal and the other inside out, except the bottom few inches knotted into a ball the opposite way. Socks are the same, one completely reversed, one halfway. It is amazingly consistent, and she doesn't know she's doing it. Or if she does, she's great at not letting on that she's doing it on purpose. I'm not sure how she does it like that so consistently, or why they're not always the same side, or the same side backwards. It's bizarre to me that she does it, and ever more bizarre that it's so consistent but still changes sides and degrees. Story 77. His parents are both immigrants from a developing nation. He was born and raised in America, but he did not know that you could flush toilet paper. We had a very awkward talk about it. Story 78. That my wife is extremely analytically smart. I keep saying she should be an investigative journalist, a lawyer, or crime scene type worker. She's so good at picking apart and finding holes, reasons, motives, etc., etc. She just calls it overthinking. Wild woman. Story 79. My husband has a bad habit of leaving cupboards open and leaving caps partially screwed on, or just sitting on top of things, e.g., olive oil, salad dressing, etc. These are annoying, but in the grand scheme of things, pretty minor since he's so great in so many other ways. Story 80. My girlfriend used to either make breakfast herself, or I would do it, set it on the table, and then and only then would she enter the washroom to do her business and brush, etc. Her breakfast and tea was almost always room temperature when she ate it. She also gives me for liking cold food, so I don't get it. Asked her about mine and she said, "It's the way I sleep." She'd stay up studying in the middle of the night, and when she came to bed, she'd see me sleeping with my legs 90 degrees away from each other, but my knees bent too. So I looked like the bottom half of a swastika. Story 81. Apparently, the bread knife does not belong with the other knives. It has a handle, so it goes in the drawer with the wooden cooking spoons and soup ladles, which are made of metal. So why are the soup ladles not in the drawer with the cutlery that is also made of metal? Story 82. OMG, so many my hubs is such a quirky old soul. Let me just pick one. He shuts doors too gently at times. I once woke up freezing and went into the living room of our apartment at the time and discovered the door hanging open from where he'd come in after work. I think it's just because he's a night owl and trying to be quiet, but it is so funny. Story 83. She can't physically. She had her entire large intestine removed due to a medical condition and now she can't. While I knew about the medical procedure, I did not know about the lack of flatulence until we moved in. Story 84. She lacks the spatial awareness to properly stack different-sized bowls together. And I mean her brain physically does not have the ability to see that the bowls stack better a certain way. Story 85. She does not know how to close bags of bread. She simply cannot do it. She will return it to the pantry but not close it. Not even a twist close. I'm talking wide open air chute. She's so tidy and clean and properly self-governing over every other aspect of her life. I just don't understand. I've caught her red-handed like 10 times now. No amount of intervention has helped. Bread bags break her brain.